for your children to be fed. So you're not crying because they're crying and they can't go to bed. You cannot pray for your medical bills to disappear. You cannot pray for the mold to stop poisoning your children in the classrooms. The other thing that frustrates me is people who have experienced poverty, who have gotten the straps for their bootstraps, who sit and talk about how we shouldn't do anything for the next person. See, as someone who knows severe poverty, I lived in a refugee camp on the floor, no water, nothing. And I hear somebody say here in the United States.
In a deeply emotional moment, Representative Ilhan Omar began by reflecting on the pain of poverty, saying, "You can't pray away hunger or medical bills." Her words struck a chord with many Americans who've faced real hardship and struggle. But that same emotional appeal also drew skepticism. While Omar presented herself as a voice for the oppressed, critics argued she often used that sympathy to deflect from her own controversies in Congress. Her personal story, one of resilience and survival, undeniably resonant with people. Yet it's her words and actions as a lawmaker that have sparked division and outrage across the nation. This video dives into the growing political storm surrounding Congressman Chip Roy's reaction to Omar's removal from the House Foreign Affairs Committee, a moment that exposed deep fractures in Washington. For years, Omar's critics have accused her of making statements that damaged America's reputation abroad. Now, Republicans, led by figures like Chip Roy, say they've had enough. They insist this isn't about race or religion, but about restoring accountability and protecting America's credibility on the world stage. And this is where the clash between political power and public trust truly begins.
Gentleman from Texas recognized.
Appreciate the chairman. I do associate myself with the remarks of the gentleman from Kentucky, but also the gentleman from South Carolina, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, the gentlelady, all the remarks that we've been talking about over here. And I appreciate the spirit of the remarks from the gentleman from Colorado. Would note that we're here for a very obvious reason. The door was opened, and now we're dealing with that. And the door shouldn't have been opened. I'm reminded when I was in the Senate Judiciary Committee in 2005, and Miguel Estrada was being filibustered by the Democrat majority at the time. And we know why. We know this because a memo that said very specifically that he was being filibustered because he was an Hispanic conservative was found, but then shoved aside. We couldn't talk about it because it was found on a server, and they said, we shouldn't get it. There's a whole lot of backstory on that. But there was a lot of drama around that. There were 7 judges being held up: Priscilla Owen, Janice Rogers Brown, because she's black. That was all happening. We just sweep that aside. And you fast forward, and Bill Frist was being pressured to deploy the nuclear option. I remember being part of all those conversations, the Senate lawyer and the Judiciary Committee. Bill Frist decided not to deploy the nuclear option. In 2013, Harry Reid did deploy the nuclear option. 2017,
when Congressman Chip Roy took the floor, his message was unmistakable. This debate was about fairness and consistency. He reminded the chamber that it was Democrats who first set this precedent when they removed Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar from their committee assignments in the previous term. Now, Roy argued, Republicans are simply responding in kind. He made it clear that this wasn't the path he wanted to take, but as he put it, we're not going to unilaterally disarm. In the world of politics, when one side changes the rules, the other side inevitably responds. And that's exactly what was happening now. To drive his point home, Roy compared the situation to an old-school baseball brawl between Nolan Ryan and Robin Ventura, a moment when one player took a hit and finally decided to fight back. It was his way of saying that Republicans were done sitting on the sidelines while Democrats took swings without consequence. The analogy perfectly captured the mood inside Congress, a body bruised by partisanship, yet determined to stand its ground. Roy's words sent a clear message across the political aisle: the era of one-sided politics is over. And the change with these new rules could be felt just as easily as it had for both sides.
Then certain things changed at the United States Supreme Court. So now we live in that world. It is what it is. Now here we sit. The door was open. I just went back and reread my speech on the floor because the gentleman, I hadn't done that yet. I went back and reread my speech on the floor. Not stand by every word of that speech. And in it, I referenced the fact that I had just a few months prior had been in agreement with some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle with respect to January 6th, which there's disagreements on our side of the aisle on some of that with respect to the votes at the time. And that I'd taken very strong disagreement and sought apology from our colleague on our side of the aisle about some of the remarks that were said, but felt that this was not the right path to go down. I stand by that. So here we sit. I could associate myself and do with all the remarks that gentleman from South Carolina. I have very strong disagreement with a lot of the statements that Representative Omar has made. We've covered most of them. That some people did something is the one that really sticks in my craw pretty strongly. Raises a whole lot of flags for me. I think there are significant amount of justifications to raise issues with respect to service on the Foreign Affairs Committee, but I would not go down this road. But I'm also reminded, in August of 1993, Juan Gonzalez was a batter for the Texas Rangers and was plunked by Alex Fernandez from the White Sox. And just a little bit later, Robin Ventura came.
Chip Roy made it clear that he strongly disagreed with many of Ilhan Omar's past statements, especially her infamous remark describing 9/11 as the day some people did something. For millions of Americans, that comment wasn't just poorly worded, it was deeply offensive. It felt dismissive of one of the darkest days in U.S. history, a day that forever changed the nation. That single phrase became a turning point, reshaping how many viewed Omar and fueling the argument that she shouldn't represent America on matters of foreign policy. Roy emphasized that accountability isn't about punishment, it's about protection, protecting America's credibility, its values, and its people. The commentary around this moment serves as a reminder that this debate goes far beyond party lines. It's about standing up to the political establishment and demanding integrity from those in power. For years, conservative voices have claimed they were silenced or mocked for speaking uncomfortable truths. Now, platforms like this one are pushing back, exposing hypocrisy, and defending what they see as the core of American patriotism. Omar's removal, they argue, isn't about silencing a dissent. It's about ensuring that those who represent the United States do so with integrity, respect, and unwavering loyalty to the nation's principles.
To the plate for the White Sox, and Nolan Ryan was on the mound. And Robin knew what was about to happen. Nolan plunked him. And then Robin Ventura charged the mound, and then Nolan Ryan beat the crud out of him on the mound. That's what happened. We all know that's what happened. Old school baseball. Nolan Ryan defined old school baseball. This is raw politics. That's what this is. When the doors opened, then there's a question, and you have to decide what you're going to do. We're not going to unilaterally disarm. Just not going to do it. I'm tired of that. It just is what it is. Guys took a shot at someone on our team, about statements I disagreed with, and took very much to task. But I've got strong disagreements with Representative Omar. I would prefer, if it were just starting from scratch, I would not choose this path. I'd just say whatever stuff you all want to say. We'll say whatever stuff we want to say. Our manager pick our team. Let's go battle it out in committee. That's what I would say. I would say that's the right place to be. But at this point in time, it is my considered judgment that, like Nolan Ryan, we've got to respond. And I'm just going to be blunt and honest about it. That's just my belief. I think it's important. And I hope We'll get through this. We'll kind of hip check each other. Maybe we can sit down.
Ilhan Omar's record in Congress has long been a source of controversy. Over the years, she's made statements that critics say downplayed terrorism, insulted key allies like Israel, and appeared sympathetic toward America's adversaries. Her infamous "some people did something" remark about 9/11 was seen by many as dismissive of a national tragedy. Combined with her repeated questioning of U.S. foreign alliances, it left critics wondering where her true loyalties lie. When you hold a position that directly influences foreign relations, words carry enormous weight, and this time, Republicans decided those words had to come with consequences. Their argument was simple. Democrats had set the standard themselves. When Republicans like Paul Gosar or Marjorie Taylor Greene faced punishment, Democrats called it accountability. But when Omar faced criticism, they labeled it racism and Islamophobia. That, Chip Roy argued, was the double standard at the heart of the issue. His message was clear. If you make the rules, you have to live by them. Fairness cannot be conditional. This vote, Roy insisted, wasn't about revenge. It was about restoring balance and integrity to Congress, ensuring that accountability applies to everyone, no matter which party they belong to.
Figure out by the end of this Congress, next Congress, whoever's in charge, we figure out how we're going to play ball going forward and set those rules. And I would say the same thing about open rules, closed rules, structured rules. And the ranking member could scoff. We've had X number of votes. We'll have continued debate about this stuff over time. There will be closed rules. There will be structured rules. There will be open rules. I'd like to have that debate. I'd like to have the considered judgment of the ranking member on that, and as I have debate on my side of the aisle. I'm just saying that we can figure out how to protect this institution and try to decide how to do things the right way. But in this instance, I'm going to be very open and honest about why I'm going to vote for this resolution. That's why. Again, recognizing the statements that the representative has made, I find to be highly problematic, extremely concerning, raising very serious questions from a foreign affairs perspective, as the ranking member has raised about statements made and how he feels about people being on certain committees over here.
Gentlemen,
I think we should, in my opinion, we should withdraw from that battle going forward and then let each manager pick their team. And I'll be glad to yield to the gentleman from Colorado.
And I would simply say I appreciate Mr. Roy's honesty. I mean, and again, kind of similar to what Mr. Massey said previously, and not to belabor the point, because I think you've already conceded this, but why not emulate the same resolution that was used in the past?
This moment marks a turning point in how conservatives respond to political attacks. For years, they've taken the hits, choosing restraint in the name of fairness. But now, leaders like Chip Roy are signaling a new era, one where Republicans are no longer standing by quietly, but fighting back using the very same rules Democrats set in motion. It's a clear sign that the balance of power in Congress is shifting. Removing Ilhan Omar wasn't just a symbolic gesture, it was a warning, a message that accountability is coming for anyone, regardless of party, who disrespects the American people or the values they stand for. In the end, this debate was never just about one committee seat. It was about America's credibility, its moral strength, and the growing demand for integrity in leadership. Chip Roy's stand represents a rising movement, one that puts the nation first, above politics, above identity, and above excuses. Omar may be off the Foreign Affairs Committee, but the real fight is far from over. This is a battle for truth, fairness, and the future of American leadership. And the message from conservatives is now unmistakable. They're done playing defense. The fight for America's future has only just begun, and this time, they intend to win.
To calling this something that it is not in terms of the due process language. That's the part that I just didn't understand, because if it doesn't provide due process, why? So, as you said, it's partisan. It's not. And again, I appreciate the honesty on that front, and obviously the past presidents that you cited and the rest. But
I would. I don't want to interrupt.
No.
Yeah, I would just say, agreeing with the gentleman from Kentucky, putting something in the whereas clauses, outlining a genuine statement by the speaker on our side or whatever, saying that would be taken into consideration and viewed is something. It is something. It is not, I will be very clear, due process in the way we mean it in court. This is not a court. This is not due process in that sense. The question here is what we're going to do as members to afford each other the opportunity to speak, be heard. I'm much more in the favor of let each other speak and be heard, and then go use your First Amendment rights to go say why you think that person said something crazy or disagreeable. I would prefer to be in that space. I have no problem with that language being in the whereas clauses. I'm not going to go trumpet it as some grand, amount of due process. It's something. It's something in there, and I'd hang my hat on it and say, yeah, go argue the ethics and make the claim. But that's not what this is about. I mean, let's just be clear. Ryan flunks Ventura for a reason. And I yield back.
Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
After the vote, Chip Roy stood before reporters, calm, steady, and unapologetic. He said this moment wasn't about politics or popularity, it was about protecting America's dignity. Roy reminded the press that every time a representative minimizes national pain or insults our allies, the world takes note. If we can't respect our own tragedies, how can we expect others to respect us? That message hit home for millions of Americans, tired of watching leaders treat public service like a performance. To Roy, representing the nation is not an entitlement, it's an honor. Meanwhile, Ilhan Omar pushed back, claiming she was being punished for speaking her truth, for being a Muslim woman who dared to challenge the system. Her supporters rallied behind her online, calling her a voice for the voiceless. But critics argue this wasn't about faith or identity, it was about professionalism. They pointed out that other Muslim lawmakers never faced such controversy because they chose unity over division. The real issue wasn't Omar's religion, it was her rhetoric. And once again, Washington found itself trapped in the same cycle, where accountability is mistaken for bias, and every argument turns into a moral battlefield. As the headline spread, America split. Progressives condemned the decision as revenge politics. Conservatives hailed it as long overdue accountability. But beyond all the shouting, one haunting question remained. Has Congress lost its moral compass? Roy's message cut through that noise. He didn't celebrate Omar's downfall. He reminded everyone that actions have consequences. His tone was firm but never hateful, a rare moment of discipline in a time of outrage. He spoke for citizens who feel ignored, Americans tired of watching politicians play victim while dodging responsibility. Public service isn't a shield, it's a mirror. Those words captured the essence of his message. Leadership should reflect the people it represents, and when that reflection prints ugly, it's Congress's duty to fix it. Roy, with calm conviction, stood in contrast to the chaos around him. It wasn't grandstanding. It was a call to maturity. A reminder that strength doesn't come from shouting louder, but from standing firm in truth. Omar's emotional defense, her journey from poverty to power, inspired many. But for Roy and his allies, inspiration cannot replace accountability. Personal history can explain someone's views, but it can't excuse their words. Because in Congress, every statement shapes how the world sees America. The media, as always, poured fuel on the fire. Some maintain Omar as a victim of right-wing aggression, others friend her, the face of misguided activism. Lost in all that noise, what's the real issue? Conduct. When lawmakers are acting like celebrities instead of servants, the people lose trust. Roy's tone reminded the nation that Congress isn't a stage, it's a responsibility. His message wasn't flashy, but it was powerful, because it spoke to something America's been craving: honesty. Omar's removal reignited the debate over double standards in Washington. Why are conservatives punished instantly, while Democrats get a pass? Roy's response was simple. If fairness doesn't apply to everyone, it isn't fairness at all. That line hit a nerve. It summed up a frustration of millions who are tired of selective outrage, where accountability depends on party lines. For Roy, this wasn't just about Ilhan Omar. It was about rebuilding fairness in a system that's forgotten what that word even means. Analysts called it one of the most consequential moments of the session because it wasn't just a vote. It was a signal, a sign that the tone in Washington is shifting, that lawmakers are being reminded words don't disappear, they echo across the nation and the world.
Roy's leadership proved that accountability doesn't need cruelty. He didn't gloat, didn't mock. He simply drew a line. And in an age where politics rewards outrage, that quiet string stood out. Outside the Capitol, reactions exploded. Some cheered, some protested, but everyone agreed on one thing. This moment exposed how broken America's political dialogue has become. People no longer listen to understand. They listen to attack. But Roy's calm defiance brought something rare, reflection. His call for decency felt like a breath of fresh air. By week's end, the dust had settled, but the message remained. Ilhan Omar's removal wasn't just political, it was cultural. It told America that leadership demands accountability, that identity can't shield anyone from consequence, and that principles still matter. Chip Roy may have sparked outrage, but he also sparked introspection. He reminded Congress and the country that fairness and respect aren't partisan ideas, they're American ones. The debate may have ended, but the standard he set will echo long after the headlines fade.